Welcome back, Descendants. We got a nice video here for you today about trigger modules. What are they? Where can you get them? And how do you equip them? And we got our buddy here, Cillian, who's going to help us with a bunch of this because, let's face it, without modules, he'd be out of a job. All right, Cillian, we can take it from here. So what are trigger modules? I'm glad you asked, because if we go into our library, we go into our modules. Again, the library is the best place to find anything you want in the game. Go all the way down to the left-hand side over here, and you will see a new option called Trigger. This will show you all the trigger modules that are currently in the game and what they do. For simplicity's sake, let's take a look at Gap in Time. Has a keyword on it, which every trigger module will have a keyword. Every trigger module will have two things in common. It will have keywords in it, and it will have ranges for that it can randomly roll within every time that it drops. So Gap in Time here, you'll see, has normal AoE as its keyword, its key phrase. That normal AoE key phrase is tied to different abilities on different descendants in the game. And if you see down there on additional damage, you can roll this between 5 and 35%. So that 5 to 35% is the entire range that this can roll. So 5% is the worst possible roll you can get for additional damage on this. That would be a blue. 35% is the best possible damage you could roll with this, and that will be gold. Now, as we move on to look at some other trigger modules here, you'll see there are many more key phrases and many more things that can roll. So if we move over one and look at Power Beyond, this is one of the more popular trigger modules that are in the game right now. And if we look at this, we'll see that Power Beyond is triggered by a global DOT or a ground DOT type of skill. Now, when this module is triggered, you can have a skill power increase from 5 to 15%. It's additive here. And like I explained earlier, this 5 to 15% is the entire range that can roll. 5% will be blue, 15%, which is max, would be a gold roll. So trigger modules are something that you can add to your Descendant as long as the ability types match. That can give you an additional benefit when you trigger them with those keyword, key phrase abilities. All right, so where do we get these trigger modules from? Well, we're in the library, which tells us how to do all that kind of stuff and where to go pick it up. So if we click acquisition info here, we'll see that these drop in a spoils box, specifically a trigger module spoils box. And if you look at this here, it's a special supplies looted from Vulgus in the Axion Plains, contains a trigger module and opens upon acquisition. So you'll see here every spoils box that is labeled as trigger module loot has an 11.11% chance of giving you these trigger modules. So it's random. It's not like the spoils boxes or the mutant cell boxes from Sigma Sector where you can pick the mutant cell that you want out of it. The trigger module loot automatically gives you one of these trigger modules at the 11.11% chance. So if we go one step further here, it's going to show us everywhere in Axion Plains where we can get this trigger module loot. And you can see I already have this set as a target reward, and that's really important because the mission type that you deal will give you more percentage on that pity reward bar than others. So let's go ahead and go take a look at that. So for a regular non-operational mission, you will see that every time you clear this and kill the boss, your pity percent will go up by 20% per mission clear. Now for the operational missions that rotate throughout the day that have the fangs icon to signify difficulty, you will get a total of 40% pity progress towards your trigger module loot. So it's pretty safe to say do the harder missions if you can, you'll get way more progress towards these loot boxes. And of course, last but not least, you can kill the wall crasher for a minimum of 4 trigger modules each time. Sometimes it can be bugged, I've heard of people getting less, but you can also get a jackpot of up to 22 modules at a time. So now that you know what trigger modules are, you know where you can get them, let's see how we can equip them. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to switch to a Descendant that I don't have built out all the way just yet. We're going to go to Enzo because I need to show you something very, very important here when it comes to trigger modules. So trigger modules are equipped in the normal Descendant module area. And you'll see here you'll have this new square right here, and this has got the lock icon on it. You'll see this new square, and this is where you're going to put your trigger modules into. This is where you're going to equip them. However, there are requirements to unlocking this slot on your Descendant, and they are as such. You will need to use 10 crystallization catalysts. This does not include any of the free catalyzed slots on your Descendant. You will need to physically use 10 crystallization catalysts on your Descendant. So you'll need to catalyze it 10 times and set a polarity 10 times. You can do the same slot. You can do different slots. It doesn't matter as long as you use those 10 crystallization catalysts on the Descendant. You will also need to use an energy activator on the Descendant, and that's something that increases your overall capacity. If you're going into Axion planes or you're hunting trigger modules, you probably have already done this here. And your RK tuning level needs to be max. You need to be at 40 out of 40 for that. Now, don't worry too much about the RK tuning level if you have this done on a normal Descendant, because the RK tuning level works for both the normal and the ultimate version of the Descendant. One thing I have not tried yet is using a photon imprinter from a normal Descendant to an ultimate Descendant to see if that counts for the 10 catalyst use. I think when Ultimate Luna comes out, we will be testing that, and we'll update the pinned comment below. But now that we have this taken care of and we've gone over these requirements, let's go ahead and switch over to another Descendant that I do have everything completely unlocked for. And you'll see here we have our Jaber White Knight Gulch Blue Brain Farm build. I'll put a link to that in the description below too if you need more blue brains, because who doesn't? So if we click on that, we'll see all the trigger modules that we have earned in the game, and it'll also tell us all of the roles that are associated with them. You'll notice on the top right hand corner of these modules, you'll see a gold icon, you can see a blue icon, you can see purple icons up there. So that color of that icon means that is the quality of the role on that module. So if we look at the gap in time trigger module here, it's only got one affix that can roll, the additional damage, 35%. I'm sure everybody is going to have plenty of these by the time they're finished doing a bunch of their grinds for trigger modules. But if we go over here to this Kuiper Hollow Points, we'll see that at the very top here, the base recoil increase is at 50%, which that's considered a blue roll for this mod for the range that it can roll there. And you can see we have 100% here for the trigger rate, which rolls from 80 to 100. Trigger modules are definitely going to be a grind because you're going to want to get the highest gold rolls possible for these. You'll see my power beyond here has a max skill power increase, so it's gold. It also has a max skill effect range at 20%, which is also gold, which coincides with the double gold iconography right up here at the top right hand side of the trigger module itself. But how do I know? What's an easy way for me to figure out which trigger module can work on my Descendant? Well, the best way to do that is when you're in this menu with your Descendant, on the left side, you can click any one of the skills that are here, which coincide with your Descendant skills, and the list will automatically filter for you so you can figure out which one you want to slot in there. You want to put a power beyond? Go for it. Put a power beyond in there, and once it's slotted, this will light up saying this is the skill that is associated with it. And when you save it, it'll go solid, and you'll know this is what you have applied. Now, remember when I said there are keywords and key phrases that make trigger modules work? Well, this says using a global DOT or a ground DOT type skill will grant void recharge, which is basically how this trigger module works. Those DOTs trigger the module's effects. So if you look at the assault turret down here, you'll see at the very top of the description card, there's install and global DOT are the key phrases for this skill. Now, global DOT is in red here because that is the keyword or key phrase that triggers the module that is equipped. You'll notice none of these other skills that I have here on Jaber have that same key phrase, so they don't trigger the module at all. Only the ones that have the global DOT on there. And if I bring this down and select some of the other skills that are over here, you'll see particle conversion emitter will only trigger off ally enhancement, healing, charging, or supply type skills. So you'll see the healing turret obviously does healing. The turret engineering obviously does healing to Jaber's turrets. So those work just like that. Really easy, really quick, and a nice at-a-glance version of this UI that lets you find the trigger modules you want to put in there and then use them. So once you've equipped the trigger module that you want, You can save that, come back out, and you'll see that trigger module is now applied onto your Descendant. One really neat thing is for the different skill presets that you have up here, you can have different trigger modules assigned to them. So say I didn't want power beyond there. Say I wanted death by 1,000 cuts on this new build that I have going on. I could have that very specific trigger module set to this module preset, which is great. Makes sense that it would work that way. You know, sometimes you just never know though. Last and kind of least, I wanted to let you know that, without modules, Cillian would be out of a job. So you're going to get a lot of extra trigger modules as you're grinding stuff out. You're going to get roles that you don't want to keep. You're going to get so many, and you only have room for 100 of those in your inventory. So you're going to have to dismantle them. And that's what Cillian is for. He's got a new menu option here to dismantle trigger modules. When you click that, it's going to show all the trigger modules that you have. And generally you want to compare the roles, and ditch the roles that are just not going to work for you, or the roles that are double blues, things that are just below the current level of trigger module that you're using. And when you do this, you'll see you get a substantial amount of Kuiper here for dismantling these trigger modules. For those who are low on Kuiper, for those who have yet to upgrade all of their mods for the achievements in the game, this is a really great way to stock up on a lot of extra Kuiper and an easy dismantle. And Cillian still has a job. Easy enough, right? That's where the trigger modules are. That's where you can get them, and that's how you use them. I'm using Jaber here to show this off because he's had a little bit of a change this season. I'm looking forward to trying to do some leaderboard stuff with Jaber on Stormhanger. So if you ever want to catch us live trying to do some of this stuff, I also had a subathon goal of that I have to 60 cat Jaber. So I mean, yeah, there's that too. Anyway, if you ever want to catch us live on Twitch or join our Discord community, all the links that will be in the description below. We love to help people out. We love to pride ourselves on that stress-free, carefree, and ego-free help. So we'll see you there, Descendants. And until the next one, 0 out.